What future classic should I buy is the most frequently asked question here on RetroGarage. The answer, well, is not that simple.
Right now you're probably looking through endless online car sales platforms, scrolling aimlessly to discover that bargain future classic. But unless you set some ground rules for yourself, the reality is that narrowing down to a car that suits you is borderline impossible. And realistically, you want a car that you know you will enjoy for all of the right reasons. At the end of the day, I'm just a guy on the other side of a screen who doesn't know much about you, nor what you enjoy just yet. And for me to push my own bias upon you would be doing you a disservice, and I ain't about that. Well, I guess I am biased towards old cars, but I'd like to think if you clicked this video, you knew that already.
I could be really biased and say you should buy a Coupe Quattro and everyone should buy 5-cylinder Audis, or I could give in to my friends and say, hey, you should all buy E36 333i's like this one. In reality, I think the answer is the best future classic that you can buy is the one that you can barely afford.
What I mean by this is the importance of not going beyond your means. Especially if it's your first older car, just remember that cars aren't cheap. And there's no point getting into debt for a car that you literally cannot afford to maintain, as then it just becomes a bit of a paperweight. And that would be the first step towards you hating it and also hating cars in general, and we don't want to see that. Personally, I go for the best car that's just within your realistic price range, either the best spec or the best kept example, because the most important part is you being able to enjoy the car rather than it stressing you out. And also ignore all of the videos online talking about the most appreciating cars, because realistically, if you're watching this video, you're not going out buying Carrera GTs or Ferrari F40s just for fun. Realistically, you should be considering cars that you feel like you'd enjoy driving, owning and maintaining. If you feel like you wouldn't enjoy any of those three and you're just buying something for the sake of investment, then I think you're wasting your time. And realistically, most old cars go up in value anyway. And if you've just bought something as an investment car rather than enjoy, well, any profit you do make is just paying you back for your wasted time. And we can always make more money, but we can never make more time.
Now I know that's probably not the answer you want, and you're probably looking through a platform like Car and Classic at the moment, trying to find your next future classic. Ideally something that will go up in value, something that will be desirable in a couple of years, and something that's fun and exciting. And maybe I'll just tell you about this car, my Coupe Quattro, and how I got it. See, the thing is, when I bought this Audi Coupe Quattro back in 2019, and Donal bought this 323i, the market was a very different place and these cars weren't as hot or desirable as they are today. E36s at the time were 10 a penny, and Coupe Quattro, well, nobody really knew what that was, so nobody wanted one. Well, nobody wanted one except for me. I really wanted one of these. Well, what I actually wanted was an Audi Quattro, but I couldn't afford one of those. Even at the time, they were so far out of my reach as a 22-year-old back in 2019 that I kind of just had to let that dream go. But what I could get was the next best thing, which is the B3 generation of Audi Coupe Quattro. As I said, nobody really cared about these cars here in Ireland, so I was able to buy this for about €3,700. There's a full video on my channel where I talk about this car and why I bought it from like 2 or 3 years ago. But this is still probably one of the best cars I bought. And nowadays, you'd find it tough to find one of these in any condition for under 15 grand. And that's only 6 years of a difference. And what so many people on the internet will tell you that they can predict which cars will go up in value the most over the next couple of years, nobody really predicted this. Well, I guess in a way I did, because I banked my whole career on this car, because this is the car that ended up setting up RetroGarage. As I said, when I bought this, I initially wanted an Audi Quattro or an Audi S2, something 5-cylinder turbo, because, well, I grew up watching Group B rally videos, and those iconic 5-cylinder turbos were just one of the most special sounds that I could imagine. So I wanted to have that for myself. Unfortunately, both of those cars were way out of reach. I think when I bought this, you could have got an Audi S2 or a good Audi S2 in the UK for about £7,500. Problem is, we live in a place called Ireland where the VRT cost on it would add probably the same price again just to put it on Irish number plates. So instead, I bought this for €3,500 or €3,700. For everyone that's not from Ireland that doesn't understand VRT, it's basically vehicle registration tax, and in Ireland we have to pay it because of stupid decisions of politicians years ago and the motor industry in Ireland trying to protect itself, and now unfortunately it actually ruins the motor industry in Ireland. So we have to essentially pay, I think it's a 40% of the open market selling price in Ireland, so it doesn't matter what you paid for the car, but for most performance cars it's about 40% of the open market selling price in Ireland. And yeah, so technically you can usually count on it being like 50 to maybe 100% of the actual value of the car. And there's also not many ways around it. If you're driving a car that's not from Ireland and you live in Ireland, if you're driving it for over 30 days, then you can have it seized or taken off you. So yeah, so that's why cars in Ireland are so expensive and you don't really see as many high-end cars here as well. Now, back to the video. Now, I've always been really into nostalgia. Before, when I lived in London and worked in an agency, I looked after like heritage clients, and also I used to run film photography review channel here on YouTube as well. So I've always been massively fascinated by the idea of nostalgia. So when I bought this, I was hoping and banking that that nostalgia cycle would move on the same way it does for most things. So I was hoping that cars like this would become desirable the same way the Quattro did, the same way the Sierra Cosworth did, and the same way so many other cars did. And there was one other little ace up this car's sleeve, because again, Ireland is a country where it's quite expensive to have cars. So the tax on this at the time was like 1,080 when I bought it. But as soon as the car went 30 years of age back in 2021, it went all the way down to €56 tax, which is exactly what's gonna happen to this car come January. This is 1996, and like my Audi S6, as soon as January rolls around, it's going to go from about 1080 a year or 980 a year to down to €56 a year. Because back before the pandemic, both of these cars were high tax, and nobody really cared about cars like this because they couldn't be bothered taxing old cars. And me and Donald, well, we decided to make use of that and bought both of these cars for a lot cheaper than what you could get one now. And if you try getting a 6-cylinder E36 coupe, especially one with a sunroof, you're going to be hard pushed. And if you're trying to get a coupe quattro, well, there's basically none for sale. Now you're probably thinking that's not helping you much. The reason you clicked in this video is to find the best future classic to buy. You're probably looking through a platform like Car and Classic, and you're trying to figure out which ones you should go for that aren't quite that expensive just yet. But the reason I tell those stories is because both of these cars weren't overhyped when we bought them. Back in 2019, 2018-ish, when I bought this, and probably around the same time when Donald bought this, well, they were just old cars. They were old cars that we liked, however. But if you're trying to consider what future classic car to buy, there's a couple of things I'd make note of, and things that I consider. So, firstly, we have suitability. The suitability to the country that you live in. Do you live in a country? Do you live in a city? Is it going to be hard to park? What's the weather going to be like? What are your roads like? Do you have good roads? Do you have really terrible roads? In Ireland, well, usually it rains, and we also don't have great roads. So that kind of rules out quite a lot of cars here. Secondly, nostalgia. What kind of vision do you have for yourself in that car? You know, when I bought this car, the Coupe Quattro, well, I had this vision that I'm kind of like reenacting, you know, old school Group B, hence why I'm even wearing an old school 1980s Audi sport jacket, and that's the image that I had in mind for this car. I also had a different image in mind. Well, that ties in with the next category, which is cultural reference. I'm half German. I was born in 1996, so 90s cars of, you know, German 90s cars are quite appealing to me because they feel like of that era when I came around onto this world. So that's why I have a lot of old school 90s Audis. And I also have this vision of like, you know, I've built my own business, I've built my own business in the past. So this kind of like 90s German businessman is a kind of vision that I have for myself, and that kind of ties through all of the cars that I have as well. And fourth is driving feel. Do you want it to be something that's a cruiser? Do you want to just cruise it? And fourth is the type of driving you're going to be doing with it. Do you want it to be a cruiser? Do you want it to be, you know, fun to drive up mountain roads? Do you want to do a little bit of sliding in it? Or does that not really matter as much to you? Because that will help you figure out whether it's a hot hatch, whether it's a rear-wheel drive car, whether it's a four-wheel drive car, whether it's a luxury cruiser, whatever it is. At least now, those four questions will help get you down and narrow you down towards closer to the car that you should probably get. So for me, while I love the look of an E36 and I love what they did in touring car championships throughout the 90s, I don't care as much about sliding. I don't care as much about having a track car. Instead, I love cars that are linked with rally. So I wanted something that's four-wheel drive, and especially something with a 5-cylinder engine. And both of those things, this car has. I also wanted something that had leftovers of 1980s nostalgia. And again, this car has it. This car was developed or first released back in 1987. And if you stick to some of those criteria, you should be a lot closer to the car you actually want. And the one thing I'd avoid, if I were you, is don't focus too much on cars that are trendy right now. You know, back when Donald bought this, E36s, well, E30s were trendy. They were old school. When I bought this, these definitely weren't trendy. If anything, you know, me making videos about them non-stop has made a lot more people realize that they even exist. No matter what car you end up going for, it'll probably be cooler than whatever came after it, because in the example of these two cars, they're both naturally aspirated and they both have about 170 horsepower, which mightn't seem like much, but they're also a lot more lightweight, and the way they deliver the power is a lot more direct and analog and raw, and all of those fun words that we like to associate with cars. Over time, cars will typically become less raw. They'll become more refined, sophisticated. They'll have to give in to more emissions regulations, and you'll have additions like turbos. And now we're also getting into an age where maybe some people are starting to consider cars that are going hybrid as a future classic, which sounds really weird to say and makes me feel quite old. If you are going for something like a BMW, and you can, go for a 6-cylinder option. They are a dying breed. We're not going to see many more of them being made that are not M cars. And in cars like this, the E36 and the E46 and subsequent E90/E92, you can still get them, and they're still brilliant, brilliant engines. They might just cost a little bit more to tax than a 4-cylinder version, but I do think this will pay dividends. If you're going for something like an Audi, again, try and get the biggest engine you can. This 2.3 20-valve naturally aspirated, 170-ish horsepower, I think 176 horsepower, and it's quite an exciting engine package as well. Similar to the BMW, it's quite raw, it's very rev happy, and it's not interfered with by anything such as turbos. This also doesn't even have a catalytic converter to kind of, you know, to restrict it in any way. And while it's nowhere near the power that an electric car or even a Golf 4 or something like that could give you, both of these cars are arguably more fun. So let me know in the comments what car you think is a future classic, and also please don't follow or subscribe to Retro Garage if you don't like old school and classic cars. We're in this thing at the moment of trying to do a weekly video from here on in. I think this is week number 5 of doing weekly videos, and I hope you're enjoying it. It seems like you know, momentum's building around them, and if you've enjoyed this, well, please make sure to like, share, subscribe. It'll mean that we can make more and more interesting videos over time as well. Let me know what you think you enjoyed of this video and what you didn't, and I will continue to improve these. But I shall talk to you as always in the next video. Cheers, take care, bye bye.